right, Ado, here we come. Reading How Does It Feel to Be a Problem? We are finishing up Sami.
You were just showing me, I think.
No, I'm not showing anything. It's black. I see a red door and I want to.
Be quiet.
Sorry.
Shut up.
Time rolled on in the shock of losing. Sorry, I gotta do this, man.
I gotta do this too.
I gotta do this too.
Sorry. The time rolled on, and the shock of losing Gunny Lane also passed, but the pain didn't, nor did the resentment. Many of the soldiers started hating more and more the fact that they were in Iraq. To some, the mission was becoming cloudier and feeling more futile, more ludicrous. Futile means like there's no reason for it. It's just dumb. Ludicrous means it's so insanely stupid. If you touch that iPad, I'm going to pull down your pants and spank that little booty. Well, I probably won't do that, but you will be in trouble.
Hello,
Say hi, Ado. All right. So,
Hi.
others, so some of the people were really disenfranchised. That means they feel like they're being drawn into this war and they didn't agree with it. Others struck to the official position and the company divided almost evenly along these lines. One half critical, that means people that didn't think it was okay, and the others single-mindedly directed. We're Marines, one group would say. This is what we're trained to do. We go home when we get sent home. But Sami and his clique, go throw that away, please.
Isn't that a med?
Please go throw it away, and I don't want to hear another word about it. Thank you. This is what we're trained to do. We go home when we get sent home. But Sami and his clique were more critical. Why are we even out here? They would ask, adding, this is not what Marines are supposed to do. Marines are supposed to go to action and fight battles, not watch our friends get picked off without a fight. The division between the two camps came to a head one day with the purchase of a bootleg DVD. So bootleg DVDs means like the movie was in the theater and somehow people got copies of it. Or, they just made it, got a real one and made 1 million copies and sold them. They do it a lot. Like New York City, you can buy bootleg DVDs. I remember I had an uncle that he would go buy them, and it was somebody actually sitting in the theater videotaping the movie. It was so weird. Like, really? And you paid money for that? I don't get it. But anyway, there we go. So, Iraqis were often seen hanging around the entrance to the camp in the hopes of selling various items of dubious value, including the latest Hollywood movies on DVD. Movies were among the more desirable purchases by the soldiers, who were often bored and looking for new entertainment in their daily life in the compound. One day, one of the soldiers bought Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, not good, from one of the Iraqi bootleggers. It was a strange little moment of global culture, watching this movie about the Iraq War in a black market version in Iraq. The soldier walked into the TV room and slipped the disc into the DVD player, which disappeared like a communion wafer into the machine's mouth. Get it? Like if you're Catholic and they have these communion wafers, they're these nasty little things. Kate, go to bed. Do you need to go to bed? You lay there and be quiet. The next time I have to talk to you, you're going to bed. She's driving me insane. Okay, so, communion wafer. A moment later, the screen went black. The sound of airplanes rang out from the speakers, and the controversial documentary began playing. Sami and about 20 other soldiers watched Fahrenheit 9/11 in silence. It had them completely captivated. At first, Sami was thinking, is this for real? But as he watched the movie, he started wondering, Am I out here for somebody's personal gain? Am I out here to help somebody else advance? That means get ahead, or make, like, to advance from one position up to another. Like if, the generals or whatever. What am I really out here for? He was convinced by the movie. He and his clique had had questions before, but now they had something to affirm their position. A cultural artifact replete with evidence, documents, statistics, and footage. Occasionally, someone would yell, "This is bullshit," at the screen, only to be hushed into quiet by the rest until the documentary ended. As soon as it did, an argument ensued. "We're here for someone else's freaking agenda," someone said. "That's crap. He's just trying to attack George Bush," countered another soldier. "Look, the guy's providing evidence for you. There's paperwork suggesting that his relationships are influencing what's going on here. How could you just dismiss this?" Sami said. "Hey, whatever the president does is right. He's a military guy. He gives us raises. He supports us. He takes care of us. He supports the military." "Are you serious? Bill Clinton never supported the military like Bush. He's the one who got us into this mess." "Bill Clinton has nothing to do with this. He was probably one of the best presidents we've had in a while compared to this guy. Are you honestly trying to justify this?" "I don't care. America was attacked. They put fewer troops in Afghanistan than they have police in New York City. Does that make sense to you?" The argument continued for a while, widening the divide between the two groups until it petered out somewhere between respectful differences and a bad taste in your mouth. The Marine Corps drills into its troops the idea that they're all green, that a fractured and divided group of soldiers is a liability. So if you're all green, that means they're all green represents the Marine color. So no matter what your ideas are, you are all Marines and you have to work together. Ultimately, that was the value that triumphed. Although some soldiers played the movie over and over, Sami and many others refused to watch it again. But by now, Sami's own position had solidified. "I don't support the war," he told me in 2006, "but I support the men and women in the war. A lot of these guys are young guys. They're 18 and 19 years old, and they have no choice. When they're told to go somewhere, they have to go. I understand that. Obligation says they have to go. And being a military guy, I side with them. I'm on their side. I value them more than the war. But to keep people out there that long for reasons that make no sense to anybody else except to your inner circle, it just doesn't sit right with me. None of these people making decisions have anybody there. They're playing with house money. They're playing with the youth of this country. They're not playing with their families. They're playing with other people's families, and you can't do that. You have to respect these people first off. Give them back their children. And that is so true. That's what my dad and I talk about. My dad, especially from Vietnam, he's like, the people that decided to send us over there, none of their kids are in the military anymore. Very few of them. And so they don't really have a personal side to that. If none of your kids, it's not your kid going over there fighting and getting killed, it's hard to care about it as much. And that's part of the problem, I think, today, is our politicians don't have, they're just not part of the real world. And that's a problem with wars like this. I'm going to kill Kate. Maybe don't. Maybe you will. I'm not on the side of the president at all. So this is Sami still speaking. I think he's an idiot. I think his policies are skewed. I think his opinions are skewed. I think he uses religion as a form of control over the country. You hear him, he says God's on our side and that God has tapped the United States as the world's police. And I'm always thinking, how do you know that? God tells you everything that happens? But at the time, Sami didn't share his opinions widely. I need these guys, he concluded, so let me shy away from it. Most everyone followed suit, especially after the first big fight. The movie was rarely brought up again. People's positions on the war became clear after that, and the issues were seldom discussed. Everyone knew what would happen: more arguments, more dissension, more internal conflict. Only when Sami was in a group of, all right, you're done.
Hey,
Go brush your teeth and go to bed. Nope, you're done. You're making noises, and I'm irritated.
I wasn't even making
Go.
any noise.
Yes, you were. Get upstairs. Go brush your teeth and go to bed.
No, Mom, I wasn't.
Okay, no iPad in the morning then.
Why no iPad in the morning?
5.
No iPad in the morning then.
Okay, and it'll be next, no iPad in the evening.
Well, I want to still play.
Then don't play right there. Go play over there by the front door.
Okay.
I'm trying to focus. I can't focus when you're running around like a heathen.
I'm trying to focus.
Ugh. Let's see. So, dissension means disagreements, by the way. Only when Sami was in a group of like-minded soldiers would he talk about the movie, about politics, or about the reason for their presence in Iraq. Otherwise, it became an issue to be scrupulously avoided, and the soldiers tried to focus on something else. After the movie had been screened enough times so that everyone who wanted to had seen it, the soldiers quietly retired the film, turning their attention to other entertainment. They played more video games. By now, Sami had less than a year left in his active duty contract. I said, go by the front door. And by the end of September, he read the flight roster and found that he was on the first flight back to Camp Pendleton. His second tour was ending. This time, the flight stopped in Italy and Ireland before flying directly to California. And Sami and his friends descended back to Earth with none of the bravado they'd felt after their first mission. So they were just totally disappointed, right? They walked into an empty shop in Pendleton since half the men were still in Iraq. When they say shop, they don't mean like a shop, like a place to buy stuff. They mean shop, like where they all were at and where they worked on their equipment and everything. Let's see, since half the men were still in Iraq, and this meant that they had little to do. So since all their machinery and stuff wasn't back, they didn't have much to work on. Sami called his parents, and they flew out to visit him. As a corporal, with no expenses for the last 6 months, Sami had a sizable little nest egg that he was now itching to spend. He wanted to see his parents, and he knew exactly what car he desired. He took his parents to the dealership with him and pointed to an Acura, a $36,000 model, while his parents tried to talk him out of his choice. Sami, his mother pleaded, what are you doing? Why do you want such an expensive car? Do you really want to spend $16,000 just on the down payment? Hell yeah, he roared. The car was his reward, his symbol of achievement, and he had been working towards this goal for 3.5 long years. When he had walked into the dealership, he saw his baby. Red 2004 with a light interior, wood grain paneling, and a kick-ass navigation system. It was love at first sight. Anna came out a couple of weeks later, and Sami took a week off to spend with her. He was scared about her arrival. He'd been worrying about their relationship since he was in Iraq and found out that he was coming home. Even though they'd been a couple for 2 years, he knew that he had never spent more than 3 weeks together with her. What would it be like now? He was going to be home for good. She had always been supportive, and he'd missed her so much. But would things change? As soon as she came out, though, and he saw her, it was as if they'd never left each other, not even for breakfast. They drove all around Southern California in his new car, eating too much food and laughing over every silly little thing. Sami felt good. He knew that things with Anna were going to be all right. But he wasn't so sure about the rest of his life. By May, his contract would be up, and he didn't know what the transition to civilian life would be like. What kind of job was I going to find, he wondered. Now I have a car payment, but I need to go to school. I'm 23 years old. I don't want to live at my parents' house. I want to live by myself. What am I going to do? He even thought about an opinion he had discarded long ago, re-enlisting. His superior officers pushed the idea hard in front of him, and the prospect flashed with attraction. He had learned his equipment maintenance job from scratch, and he'd been cited for personal achievement for best equipment maintenance in the entire company. He started thinking, maybe I can make a career out of this. I could switch jobs, get a more technologically oriented job that would prepare me better for the outside world. If you re-enlist, they promise you better choices, better jobs, better living conditions. His father thought it was a fine idea, but Sammy's mother put her foot down. Sammy, she told him quietly over the phone after she had finished shrieking, we want you home. She said she understood he was concerned about resuming his life. But don't worry about it. Whatever you need, we're there to help you. Then Anna told him of her opposition to the idea, and that put an end to the madness and folly of the moment. Can you shut the fireplace off, please? He thought about the emotional and mental stability of his family, and that was more important to him than anything the military could offer. Nor did he want to make the same mistake twice. He had entered the Marines basically on a whim, and here he was about to re-enlist on a wing and a prayer. That means like just hope for the best. About a year later, his younger brother, in a fit of emulation, that means like wanting to be like his older brother, Sami, also signed up with a recruiter in Brooklyn. When Sami discovered this, he went ballistic. He marched his brother down to the recruiting office and had them undo the signature. What's the matter? The recruiter fought with Sami. Aren't you proud to have served your country? Don't even effing start with me, Sami flung back. I served my country. I was there. That's a lot more than sitting behind a desk lying to kids. By April, it was only a matter of weeks before he would be discharged. Dan was getting out around the same time as Sami, and they came up with a brilliant idea. For a long time, Dan had wanted to move to New York, but he didn't have any family or know where to go in the city. Sami suggested that his brother-in-arms could live with him in his family's house. They could save money that way and then buy some real estate together, maybe with the Department of Veterans Affairs home loan program or something. His parents, he said, had been thinking of moving to Egypt anyway. No, you can't bring a stranger into our house, Sami, his mother told him on the phone. That's going to change our way of life. I can't walk around in my nightgown anymore if he's going to be there. I can't be relaxed in my own home. But thinking about life after active duty always left Sam feeling nervous. Over the last 4 years, he had lost touch with all of his high school friends. Sure, there was Anna, but no one else. And with Dan around, he would at least have one other person to be close to. Besides, this would be Sami's first time living in New York over the age of 21, which meant he now had New York City's nightlife in front of him. Life was ready to be lived. But his parents weren't leaving anytime soon, and they put the brakes on Sami's idea. He told Dan, who acted disappointed and angry, as if he thought Sami had canceled the idea on purpose. "Aw, man," he lamented. "I even filled out my home address on my discharge papers with your address." "Hey, man, I'm sorry," Sami said. He felt bad, but wasn't ready to go against the whims of his family. A few days later, Sami was filling out some paperwork in the office for his discharge when a snag appeared. Dan was in the office with him. Sami started arguing with the clerk, a woman below Sami's rank who was handling the red tape around his discharge. With tones unbecoming, she insisted that she had already given Sami some missing discharge papers. "Excuse me?" Sami said. "Do you know who you are talking to? There's still a rank structure here, And no, you didn't give me no paperwork. Dan was listening to the whole thing. He coughed, "Oh, shit," into his fist. Sami turned to him. "Yo, we're the same rank, and you're helping this effing subordinate make me look stupid?" She looked at Sami, as if taking his side, said, "I know." That didn't help. The two soldiers began yelling at each other. "Let's go outside, let's go outside," Dan menaced. Sami looked at him. "Whatever, man," he replied, walking away and shaking his head. The friendship was over just like that, in a civilian heartbeat. They had gone through so many things together: boot camp, combat training, job school, 2 tours in Iraq, but it didn't matter. Anna later told him supportively that Dan had always creeped her out anyways, but the fact that the friendship had ended, and over something so stupid, worried Sami. Now, what could he expect when he went home? He started wondering if he was going to burn bridges with all the friends he would make in the future, too. Okay, we're going to stop for a minute.